Ascent Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Energy Rising, The Neuroscience of Leading with Emotional Power by Julia DiGangi, narrated by Vanessa Daniels. Publisher's Note: in this audio edition, you will hear references to figures present in the print and ebook formats of the book. Introduction. I want to have a conversation with you about your emotional power, your ability to stay strong in the midst of life's inevitable challenges. This book is dedicated to helping you transform your work, your relationships, and, most importantly, your own life by working more effectively with your emotional energy. Your emotions are, in many ways, the final judge of your experiences. Are you successful enough? Depends. How do you feel about it? Is your life meaningful? Depends. How do you feel about it? Can you be more effective, kinder, more confident? Are you a good manager, entrepreneur, parent, or partner? Depends. How do you feel about it? Until you understand how to work more effectively with your emotions, it's easy to expend tremendous energy yanking at ineffective levers of change. When we pull the wrong levers for too long, we feel stressed, frustrated, angry, and exhausted. Over time, we have the sense that our life is filled with too much resistance, that we're stuck in situations we don't like, jobs we don't want, and relationships we don't enjoy. Your emotions are the bridge between where you currently stand and where you want to be. When you learn how to work with the energy of your emotions, you find empowerment, clarity, and satisfaction. Our conversation is dedicated to your emotional rising, to your ability to sustain your emotional strength even when your situations get tough. To be clear, your emotional power is not the ability to eradicate all stress, fear, anxiety, disappointment, or other bad feelings from your life. Rather, your emotional power is your ability to rise, even when your situations give you plenty of good reasons to stay down. To do this, you must first understand what your emotions actually are. Energy. I mean this physically. Your emotions are the product of a complex dance between electrical, chemical, and magnetic energies. Neuroscientists use several tools to track this brain-based choreography. Much of my work has used functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, and electroencephalogram, EEG technologies that let us see what happens in the brain when we provoke some type of emotion: fear, anger, happiness, and many others. With fMRI, we measure changes in the brain's chemical energy. EEG helps us measure spikes in the brain's electrical energy. Because these energy exchanges occur in predictable ways, neuroscientists can study the brain to create powerful, healing changes in people's lives. Your brain is, quite literally, the ultimate electrical machine, sending electrical impulses traveling at speeds up to 260 miles an hour and catalyzing thousands of electrochemical reactions every second. Your brain builds reality. Look around. Everywhere you look, you'll see evidence of human beings using brain energy to turn their emotions into thoughts, and their thoughts into things. From technology to medicine, to war, to poetry, everything you can point to in the physical world had to first originate as a zap of electricity in the gelatinous 3-pound blob inside someone's skull. If it were a science fiction movie, you wouldn't even believe it. Have you ever tried to do something in your life? Start a project, build a team, launch a business, begin a relationship, teach a child, that should have worked. In other words, you had the right strategy. You had the right people with the right plan who knew how to do the right things. But for some reason, a reason you can't quite articulate, it simply didn't work. What you needed was the right energy. As you will learn in the coming chapters, there isn't enough strategy in the world to fix bad energy, because your brain runs on energy, not on strategy. This book is based on a novel and simple premise. Your emotional power is best understood not as a set of activities you do or strategies you execute, but as an energy you possess. And when you learn to intelligently harness this energy, you begin to lead your life in the direction you desire. Your brain's energy creates sensations that you then name various things. Things like joy, anxiety, anger, stress, excitement, sorrow, love, hope, irritation, desire, and boredom. But when you really get down to it, all these emotions can really be distilled down to just two kinds of emotional energies, ones that hurt and ones that heal. For our conversation, we'll call these two energies emotional pain. Any negative emotional sensation you feel. Although pain might sound like a catastrophic word, and sometimes it certainly can be, we'll use it broadly to represent any type of negative sensation you feel. You may commonly refer to these negative sensations as stress, anxiety, fear, anger, worry, frustration, irritation, embarrassment, shame, exhaustion, self-consciousness, inadequacy, disappointment, or jealousy. Emotional power. Any emotional sensation that makes you feel you are worthy. You may commonly refer to these positive sensations as worthiness, confidence, strength, esteem, value, integrity, peace, resilience, significance, or importance. In what I have come to understand as one of the greatest paradoxes of life, the depth of your emotional power relies directly on your ability to work with the energy of your emotional pain. When worked with wisely, it's the energy of emotional pain that, counterintuitively enough, strengthens you. If you've been stuck for long, feeling lost, confused, anxious, uninspired, unempowered, it's because you've been approaching pain the wrong way. To rise to new levels of your emotional power, you will have to accept one more counterintuitive premise, that your emotional pain, all those negative feelings you keep trying to avoid, is often the precise path to your empowerment. A common response to painful negative feelings like stress, fear, worry, embarrassment, or anxiety is to try to avoid them. And so, we commonly avoid the conversations, people, places, and memories that cause us pain. The problem, however, is that chronic avoidance of your painful feelings doesn't end your feelings. It just exhausts you. All that ignoring, scrolling, pretending, numbing, and denying takes a tremendous amount of actual neuropsychological energy. Research shows that avoidance of our negative feelings wears us down. The energy we spend persistently avoiding our painful feelings then creates more painful feelings in the form of exhaustion, burnout, depletion, and numbness. The good news is there's a solution. I'll offer you a set of practical strategies and tools I call the neuroenergetics of emotional power, a model I created through my work as a neuropsychologist. Neuroenergetics is simply the idea that our emotional lives run on the brain's real, physical energy. When we more clearly understand how the brain constructs our reality, we can engineer our lives in more satisfying and empowered ways. Neuroenergetics, rooted in neuroscience and psychology, will offer you access to new levels of your emotional power. A bit about me. I'm a neuropsychologist. My work focuses on the connection between the brain, emotional pain, and emotional power. I've conducted various lines of research and examined brain function with colleagues in labs and clinics at Harvard, Columbia, Georgetown, the University of Chicago, DePaul, and the University of Illinois at Chicago. I've examined the brain, trauma, emotion, resilience, psychopathology, relationships, and genetics. In addition to my research and clinical experience, I've worked with and learned from leaders at the highest levels of power, including the White House Press Office, global companies, international NGOs, and the military. Prior to becoming a neuropsychologist, I did international humanitarian aid and development, where I provided support in UN-declared emergency zones. For many years, I've worked with individuals around the globe who have endured a range of emotional pain, from extreme trauma to common stress. I've had the profound privilege of serving survivors of torture, genocide, sexual assault, domestic abuse, gun violence, and war. I also routinely serve managers, entrepreneurs, parents, couples, co-workers, and friends who endure the common yet heavy weight of what it means to be human. They struggle through anxieties about relationships, pressures about performance, fears about failures, worries about worth, and stresses about time. If you ever struggle with your feelings, I want to assure you, this book's for you. While the causes and severity of our experiences can vary greatly, the underlying emotional energy and the solutions are strikingly similar. Pain is profoundly intimate, and yet it bonds us in our universal humanity. Your pain, regardless of its form, can be used to power your transformation. I've watched many people, from professionals to parents to partners, come into a more intelligent relationship with their emotions. When they do, their lives and the lives of the many people they touch are transformed for good. Leading with emotional energy. Understanding your emotional energy is part of this process, but it's how you learn to lead yourself through these emotional energies, particularly the challenging ones, that determines the depth of your emotional power. So, in the chapters ahead, I'm going to talk to you about how to lead yourself in emotionally intelligent ways. Whether you're a manager leading large teams of people, an entrepreneur leading yourself through the challenges of building a business, a parent leading little lives, an educator leading children's learning, or an individual simply looking to lead a more emotionally satisfying life, this book is for you. I know there's already a lot of great stuff out there about leadership, about the strategy of it, the structure of it, the communications of it, and so on. Our conversation is different in two ways. First, we will talk about your leadership not as a position, but as an overall identity. For our purposes, leadership does not necessarily mean you're a chief executive or have X number of direct reports. It's much broader. Our definition of leadership is simply this: your ability to use your own energy to influence your own life. This means your leadership isn't only about what you are doing between the hours of 9 and 5. It's about who you are being across your life. It's about how you steward your life at work, at home, in parenting, in your relationships, and on social media. Second, your leadership of others relies on your ability to use your emotional energy to lead yourself. In my work, it's common to see leaders of varying types intensely invested in the emotional experiences of other people. Managers worry about their employees. Parents obsess about their kids. Lovers are preoccupied with their partners. However, it's much less common to see leaders consciously reflect on their own emotional experiences as a primary force that impacts the way they show up in their lives and the lives of others. Missing the connection between our leadership, our emotion, and our impact renders us less powerful than we actually are. It's not that other people's emotions don't matter in your life. On the contrary, they're tremendously important. In fact, neuroscientific evidence shows that emotions can be contagious. A large scientific literature demonstrates that people neurologically and physiologically synchronize their internal emotional state with the people around them. While you cannot directly control an emotional state in another person, people are influenced by your emotional energy. For example, a parent, frustrated that their child won't calm down, can't soothe the child. But when the parent's inner state becomes calm, the upset child rapidly calibrates to this soothing emotional energy. Similarly, a manager, fixated on ways to engage their unengaged employees, feels unmotivated thinking about how unmotivated their team is. But when the manager finds inner inspiration, the unengaged employees attune to the inspiration of their leader. Our lives break down at the point of our own emotional pain, at the point of our own negative feelings of stress, fear, inadequacy, and worry. Until you have a situation you feel bad about, you do not have a problem. The way you lead your life has so much to do with how you lead yourself through your own difficult emotions, in the decisions you make, the ways you speak, the risks you take, and the connections you keep. When leaders change their own relationship with their own emotions, relationships change and the world rises. How this book will work. At the core of the neuroenergetics of emotional power are 8 neuroenergetic codes. Think of each code as a blueprint, explaining how you can harness your brain's energy to create specific improvements in your life and the lives of others. The first 5 of these 8 codes are for you. The last 3 codes are for those you lead, your team, your customers, your children, your partner, your social media followers, your friends, whoever. These final 3 codes will help you more effortlessly attract and inspire the behaviors you hope to see in others. With each code, I'll give you several examples and reflections, because the conversation we're having is not theoretical, it's practical. You will learn precisely how to apply these neuroenergetic codes to lead your life in more emotionally powerful ways. As you may have sensed already, I'll present plenty of ideas in this book that are not conventional. Many will be counterintuitive. With great intentionality, I will ask you to think in ways that may seem outlandish, wrong even. But the scientific evidence is clear. To overcome experiences of emotional pain, we must often do the counterintuitive. In this book, there will be plenty of stories to illustrate the core ideas. Many of these stories will focus on scenarios at work or at home. But I'll also share examples from other parts of life, drawing parallels that may at first seem out of turn. For example, I occasionally draw on instances of extreme pain, such as combat trauma or childhood trauma. Even if you feel you can't perfectly relate to these examples, I can promise you they have application to some of the more common pain points in your own life. I'll share a range of examples because I want you to see how, across many divergent situations, there are convergent insights about what the brain is doing. There's a soothing clarity that comes when you know how to work with your challenging emotional energies across a range of variable situations. As you will learn, the brain is the brain is the brain. And if there's an evidence-based intervention that works at the most extreme forms of human suffering, then it has application to more common circumstances as well. I'll also draw on the psychology of very complex relationships, such as the parent-child relationship and the romantic partnership, as models for how you interact with other people in your life, like your team or your clients. I do this not because I think you are the almighty parent at work or somehow in love with the people with whom you do business. I do this because intimate relationships are the most powerful and complex relationships on the planet. If we can shift relational dynamics in those circumstances, we can do it everywhere else, too. A brief note about the stories. I've created composite characters. All identifying information has been altered to protect the individuals, but all the stories are based on real people and their real emotional lives. Finally, I hope this conversation reconnects you to the spectacular energy of your own life. I hope it feels like a homecoming, a remembering that you are, as you have always been, your own most powerful resource. Get ready for the rising. Part 1. Understanding your emotional power. Understanding your emotional power. Neuroenergetic codes for building your emotional power. Before we get into the 8 neuroenergetic codes, we need to more deeply define those 2 categories of energy, emotional pain and emotional power. It becomes much easier to harness your energies when you know precisely what you're looking for. So this chapter will spell out what each of these energies feels like and the many ways they manifest themselves in your life. Before you can master them, you must first recognize them. As we work to strengthen your emotional power, you'll see that much of our effort will specifically focus on intelligently handling the energy of your negative feelings, what I'll be calling your emotional pain. Emotional pain defined. In our conversation, we'll focus less on the slam your finger in the door, step on a Lego kind of physical pain. Instead, I'll be talking to you about your experiences of emotional pain. Pain is my all-encompassing word for any negative emotional experience, like stress, anxiety, pressure, fear, self-consciousness, struggle, anger, jealousy, disappointment, inadequacy, frustration, worry, or embarrassment. I call it all pain because no matter what word you use, the brain processes these sensations in similar ways. This means whenever you say you're stressed, I'm calling it pain. When you're having a bad day or you're on edge, I'm calling it pain. When you're feeling frustrated, resentful, or anxious, it's still pain. Anytime you have a feeling you don't like, we'll call it emotional pain. As you will learn, distilling countless bad feelings into a single construct is incredibly clarifying, and it's neurologically accurate. At a high level, it works like this. When you experience feelings of emotional pain, it's because a key network in your brain has been activated. This network is called the frontolimbic circuit. Imagine it like a neural highway that serves as the connector between key parts of your brain. Parts like the amygdala, hippocampus, anterior cingulate cortex, insula, and prefrontal regions. When this circuit is activated, it creates sensations that you ultimately call anxiety, stress, fear, worry, frustration, anger, and so on. Within the range of feelings we'll call emotional pain, it's important to recognize that we'll predominantly focus on the pain you inflict upon yourself. Most precisely, we'll be talking about the pain that comes from your willingness to self-betray. While plenty of pain can be inflicted upon you, this is, for example, what interpersonal assaults and abuse are. A significant amount of pain in your life comes when you abandon yourself. This pain of self-betrayal, the times when you create pain by abandoning or forsaking yourself, is what I call self-division. To understand the pain of self-division, imagine this common scenario. Someone asks you to work on a project that you don't need to do, but you feel like you should. You want to say no thank you, but instead of listening to the truth of your energy, you say yes. When you now have to do the thing that you already didn't want to do, the energy of no is still very much alive inside of your body. You have divided your behavior from your emotion. In this scenario, there's no way you can bring the full force of your energy to your life because you have divided your energy. There's one part of you acting in one direction, while another part is feeling in the exact opposite direction. You are dividing yourself against yourself. While some pain is indeed inflicted upon you, significant quantities of your emotional pain come from this self-division. The moments when you deny yourself the things you truly want and need for yourself. For example, do you ever promise you'll do something for yourself but then don't? Want to stand up for yourself but don't? Swear you'll hold a boundary but don't? Want to speak up, but keep your mouth shut? Want to connect to people, but withdraw instead? Want to tell the truth, but stay silent? In moments like these, you abandon the truth of your own energy. And when you do this, you show yourself you're willing to be your own betrayer. There are certainly scenarios in life that pose clear, acute danger, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the times we abandon ourselves not because there's an objective danger, but because it feels too emotionally intense to stay aligned with the truth of our energy. Because many of your emotional transactions take place outside of your brain's conscious awareness, it's easy to miss the true energetic exchanges that take place. For example, imagine my coworker asks me to do something I don't want to do, or my partner speaks to me in a way I don't like. Both scenarios create negative feelings, like irritation, rage, or disappointment, inside of me. With this energy, I conclude that my partner or coworker doesn't even care about me and there's nothing I can do about it. While this is a conclusion, it's likely not the most honest one. A powerful question to ask is, have I ever effectively communicated the way I actually feel? Very often in scenarios like these, the answer is no. And the reason is because we did not know how to lead ourselves through our own painful feelings. Advancing through our own fear, Anxiety and self-consciousness is often so distressing that we would rather hand others the reins of our emotional destiny than address the ways we're abandoning ourselves. Your enduring problem doesn't so much come from what this person did or that person said. It comes from the moments you reject yourself. On the path to power, there may indeed be conversations you intentionally elect to avoid, relationships you willingly decide to end, or comments you deliberately choose to keep. The purpose of emotional power isn't to respond to every emotional impulse that arises. Rather, it's to discern the enduring truth of what you want. The idea that we can betray ourselves can be a tough pill for many of us to swallow. I know how alluring the "yeah, buts" are because I still do them myself. Yeah, but you don't know what would have happened if I said no to that person. Yeah, but you don't understand how tough my work is. Yeah, but you don't understand my marriage. Yeah, but you don't know my kids. This is an entirely natural human response. The purpose of our conversation is expressly not to blame ourselves. Quite the contrary. It's to free ourselves. Something surprisingly calming and empowering happens when we recognize that we often act as the main perpetrators of our misery. When we get clear on the ways we cause pain to ourselves, we realize we have a lot of power in its lasting resolution. And this feels like profound relief. If you want more emotional power, it's also important to remember the central mission in our conversation. We're preparing you for exceptional emotional power, a power that is so expansive it can fundamentally change the way you lead your life. To become the most powerful version of yourself, it is necessary to examine where you are dividing yourself from yourself. Before you can harness your energy, you need to take responsibility for it. Of course, it would be easier if other people acted in ways that made it easier for you to speak up, hold your boundaries, and be your authentic self. There are probably a million good reasons why it's easier to appease them than it is to refuse to abandon yourself. While that's understandable, it's not leadership. Take Krish, an entrepreneur who had long dreamed of merging his love of real estate with his gift for teaching. His dream came true when he created a business that offered online training to teach others how to invest in real estate, and hundreds enrolled. But soon, his dream became a nightmare for a simple reason. Krish could not tell people no. One client wanted a refund even though he completed the course 3 months ago. Krish thought it was absurd, but he offered it. Another person didn't like the format of the course. Krish didn't agree, but he fixed it. Some other clients didn't think it was fair that they didn't have as much real estate success as some of the other clients. Krish thought it was due to their lack of effort, but instead of offering them the truth, he offered them additional services. While his business looked great on the outside, Krish felt miserable on the inside. He wasn't running his business. His fear of upsetting people was running him. It wasn't simply that he was attentively tending to his customers. Krish was terrified of upsetting other people. He admitted he was so frightened by the prospect of other people's disappointment that he didn't know how to stand up for himself. When Krish wanted to honor his own boundaries but instead overgave to others, he was divided from himself. To understand if you're dividing yourself from yourself, consider the following. When you're exhausted, do you allow yourself to rest, or do you force yourself to push through? When you want to say no, do you respect your boundaries, or do you choose people-pleasing? If your feelings have been hurt, do you honor them, or do you minimize, push down, or ignore them? When you want something for which you don't feel entirely comfortable asking, do you advocate for yourself, or do you expect others to read your mind? If you're upset and want to talk about something, do you address your desire, or do you avoid it? When you realize you've made a mistake, do you speak to yourself in a reassuring way, or do you compound your pain by becoming self-critical? When you do the latter, you are dividing yourself from yourself. One part of your energy wants to go in one direction, example, more rest, authenticity, boundaries, while the other part of your energy behaves in the opposite direction, example, overwork, people-pleasing, overgiving. If you divide your energy persistently, you will weaken.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?